Hi, I'm Francisco Alonzo, and I teach the printmaking class at my Voice Media Center at Arts Consortium, and I'm going to be doing a small demo on making a relief print. First thing you gotta do is find your block. You can use linoleum. Here we have some MDF and then linoleum that's backed on a piece of wood. All of these work fine. First thing you gotta do is you gotta make your drawing. In my case, I'm just going to draw something real quick here as an example. Now you can draw this on a piece of paper and then transfer it onto your block, or you can just go straight to your block and draw it on there. So I am trained as a traditional printmaker, went to school at COS here in Visalia, and then I transferred to Sonoma State and went on to Cranbrook in Michigan, doing printmaking the whole time. While I am trained as a hardcore traditional printmaker, I've deviated from that, and so now I do work with print, but I don't necessarily print always. So there's a lot of print media based work that I make, and so this is kind of the way I've been working more recently. Woodcut is really like what I like to do. That's like my strength in printmaking. I do a lot of screen printing and then intaglio. Here, because we don't have a big press, we are printing by hand, and we roll it up also by hand, and we'll use a spoon to burnish the paper in order to get the impression. And then we also have multiple plates to do color blocks. And that just requires you to do a block per color, and it's really basic and simple. So the simplest way that I can compare it to something that might be recognizable to somebody trying it for the first time would be a rubber stamp. So you just take the surface that you have, cut into it, anything that's left raised will be what prints. Okay, so I've made my drawing here, just a real quick skeleton. Next thing that I'm going to want to do is go over the whole drawing with the Sharpie, making sure that I draw everything black that I want to stay black and leaving anything else behind. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that my drawing is completely done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I can take anything to stain this block. I just want this block to be a different color. Because the block is the same color throughout it. When I go and carve it, if I haven't stained the block, sometimes I'll forget where I've carved. See how you can barely see those lines there? If this was stained, then I'll be able to see all of that. So just a paper towel, and in my case I'm just using cheap acrylic paint, and just real thin. I've seen people use markers, like red markers or ink. I don't like to use a lot of stuff that has too much water because it can spoil the wood, but if you're working with linoleum, you don't have that problem. And this is actually my first time using this paint. I actually really like how this is going on, so I might start using this more in the future. Okay, so that's mostly stained now. You can see it's not solid, but I'll be able to see now this is different than the rest of the wood. So go ahead and put this aside. My ink away, and then here's your wood carving tools. They make different sets. This is my favorite one. I think this cost about 40 bucks 10 years ago or something like that. I think you can get them for about 25 bucks now, and they make all kinds of different sets. This is a Swiss made one that I got in Germany when I was desperate and needed some carving tools. And here's the Japanese set, and actually these I just bought by themselves, just what I needed. And so these are a little bit more expensive, but you can find these for a couple of bucks. I've seen them at, down to a couple of bucks at an Asian market, over a couple $100. So I recommend these. You can get these pretty much anywhere online. Well, maybe not anywhere. I just don't want to say brand names of where you can get them from, but you can find them from a lot of different places. So what you want to do is before you start carving, and actually I just forgot some lines here, so I'm just going to go back and draw those in. Okay, so you want to carve with two hands. you hold this in your palm like this, and then I use my other hand to help guide the cuts. And actually you'll see that sometimes I pull mine up a little bit higher, and that's just because these tools are a little bit short for my hand, and over time the blade itself has gotten a little bit shorter, so I tend to hold it a little higher to get a little bit more leverage. And then I just use sort of my shoulder here to do this cut. I'm not using my wrist so much, I'm not trying to injure myself, but I'm just pushing down a little bit, and then I'm letting my other hand do the guiding. Okay, so I've just done the head here, or part of the head, but I wanted to show you that this is a V gouge. I don't know if you can see that, but it's shaped like a V, and it carves a line. The deeper you push, the wider the line goes. If you don't push so hard, the line can become a little bit thinner. So this is the tool that I use primarily. Then we also have a U gouge, and it's shaped like a U, just a little bit shallow. And this makes a smaller rounded end line. We have the regular big U gouge, and this makes the same thing as the little guy, but wider, of course. And then in this set, you'll have a couple of these, knife and sort of a chisel. Now for the purposes of our class, we're not going to be using these too much, so I'm going to skip these. If we do need to go into using these, just let me know if you have a question about them, and I can show you how to use those. Typically don't use those, and we won't be using them in the class. We're going to be using pretty small blocks, and so we don't really need those too much. So I do primarily use the V gouge, and that's kind of why I forget to point those ones out sometimes. But I'll go ahead and finish this whole thing. But before I do that, just to save a little bit of time on the video, I do have a block that's already finished, and I didn't carve this myself. This is something that my brother did. And you can see that there is text here, but the problem with the text is that it's backwards, and that's because when we go to print this thing onto our paper, it's going to be backwards. So just keep that in mind. When I go to print this guy, he's going to be facing the other way. Oh, I have a carrot there. But this guy's going to be flipped the other way. He's going to be looking to the right instead of to the left. So I'll go ahead and show you how this guy prints up. And then maybe in the future, I'll finish up that skeleton, and I can show you guys that video as well. Okay, so the first thing that we got to do to print this guy up is we got to get some ink. I use oil-based ink just because where I live, it's really dry, and this stuff tends to want to dry really fast if I use water-based stuff. So it comes with a little piece of paper on it. Let's see if I can get this guy off. And there's a lot of different brands out there. I don't want to make this a commercial about a specific ink, but if you want to ask me about that, you're welcome to do so, and I can let you know what I use. So I just take a little bit of ink, and this has been sitting in the can for a while, so I'm just going to mix it to soften it up. And then I will pull a thin band of it, and that's where I'll roll from. Maybe I should go back and do a short video of the list of things that you'll need to do this. And here's my brayer. So this is just a little handheld brayer or roller, and I'll just pull a little bit of ink from there. You don't want it to be too thick. I kind of do this by sound. You don't want it to be too loud. And I'll just pick some ink up from there, and I'll roll it onto my block. Start at the edge, and you can start to see how that picks up the ink and it gets a little bit darker. Do a few passes on it, come back, pick up a little bit more ink. You don't want to do too much ink to start with, because then you'll get it in the areas that you don't want it to be. It's a lot harder to remove it once it's there than it is to just build it up slowly. This isn't a race, so take your time. The last thing that you want is to pull the print on your nice piece of paper and then it not have enough ink. going to be really hard to re-register that. Try to print it darker. So here we are. And I'm going to be printing this with the spoon today, just by hand, which is, I think most people at home will have access to a wooden spoon. And so you'll be able to print from home without too much trouble. As opposed to a printing press, which can be pretty expensive and quite large. So I just put down a little bit more ink. I could tell that it was getting a little bit light, was running out, so I'm gonna go in and add a little bit more just to make sure that's all good. Okay. So now that we're set, I'm gonna take a piece of paper. In my case, I'm just using computer paper from the printer paper, and just to save a little bit of time and money. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this on top of my block, and I'm gonna try to center it here as best I can. So I'll like see how much I need on this side, and then I'll see how much I need on this side, and then that'll give me an idea of where center is gonna be for me. Looks a little crooked, but we'll deal with that a little bit later. So I'll take a second sheet of paper, set it right over the top so that if any ink goes through that first sheet, it won't get on my spoon. And I'm just using this really simple wooden spoon. I actually made this thing a while back, so I'm gonna take this thing and I'm just gonna carefully burnish the back of the piece of paper. Slowly. That's another reason why you want a second piece of paper. Some of the oil or whatever I used on this spoon is transferring onto the back of this paper, but it shouldn't be on my actual final print, so this way I'm able to see. Now you want to take your time, you want to give it some pressure. And I'm holding the paper the whole time so that it doesn't shift on me, so it doesn't move. Because if it moves, then the registration will be off. It'll basically be printing. It's the same thing, but just slightly off. It tends to make the image look a little bit blurry, like you're seeing double. So you want to try to avoid that. So because of whatever was on this spoon transferring onto the back of this paper, I'm actually able to see a lot better what I've gone over and what I haven't. So it makes it actually a little bit easier to see where I need to work a little bit more. And you can always flip it and just peek underneath. As long as you hold the paper down, you'll be able to, it'll still line up on the same spot. And this is looking like it's pretty close. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove it for time's sake. And let's see what we have. So there you go. I don't know if you can read that. It says something pretty looking. So that was kind of cool, right? That was hard to read backwards. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. I will get back to you on a couple other things here in the future. Paper tearing, prepping, other things, multiple color blocks. So yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And I'll be posting again soon. Thank you.